Are you afraid you don't have 218?
Let's give him some space. Guys, give him some space.
Hey, back up,
Congressman, will you commit to releasing the J6 tapes?
Do you think George Sansel should be expelled?
You keep running if you lose in the first ballot. Out of the street.
That was MAGA Republican Steve Scalise running away from cameras as he is under attack by other MAGA Republicans, get this, after he was just voted among the Republican caucus to become the next Speaker of the House. It would still require a vote before the full House of Representatives. He only secured the vote of the majority of the Republicans in the closed-door secret vote that took place on Wednesday. Scalise won by a vote of 113 to 99, and then shortly after beating MAGA Republican Jim Jordan, who was endorsed by Donald Trump, MAGA Republicans do what we see them always do, attack each other, cause chaos. And it began right away with MAGA Republicans who support Jim Jordan putting out FEC statements, federal election statements of MAGA Republican Steve Scalise, showing that he spent over $500,000 in his congressional campaign account at the Washington, D.C. Capitol Grill Steakhouse. And that's a lot of steak, they're saying. And they say that it shows that Scalise, again, MAGA Republican attacking MAGA Republican, saying that Steve Scalise is McCarthy 2.0 and represents the Washington swamp establishment. And here you see all of his Capitol Grill purchases. They all total more than $500,000 through his congressional campaign. And so the attacks against Steve Scalise, who got the majority vote, were kind of fast and furious. And MAGA Republicans then launched a social media campaign against him, referring to him as McCarthy 2.0. All these Trump accounts looked like coordinated activity, saying the GOP gets it all wrong again. The swamp is loving this. Say hello to McCarthy 2.0. Then you have this other account saying, great, replacing McCarthy with McCarthy 2.0. What a joke. Republicans are effing worthless. These are all MAGA accounts, by the way. So Jim Jordan lost. Now Scalise is likely McCarthy 2.0. He's a sweet man, but my fear is he is just another Uniparty member. God bless America. And there's this other account, Freedom, whatever it's called. Scalise is McCarthy 2.0. I'm voting for Trump, and then I'm done with the GOP. F the GOP. This account, Dog Right Girl, writes, if the rumors are true, Scalise will be the new speaker. McCarthy 2.0. MAGA Michelle writes, now we know why Republicans lose all the effing time. They literally just elected McCarthy 2.0. I'm effing done with the Republicans. They can kiss my ass. And there's tons of more comments like that, and all kind of coordinated, now attacking Steve Scalise the way they previously attacked Kevin McCarthy. Oh, and then you have MAGA Republican Nancy Mace then gives an interview, and here she states that she will not be supporting Steve Scalise because he's a racist, she says. And I mean, he's said the things that she said, where Steve Scalise said that he hung out with David Duke, the head of the KKK, and said that he identifies with David Duke and says that he's a more voter-friendly version of David Duke. But MAGA Republican Nancy Mace supports Jim Jordan, who covered up sexual abuse, who was the competitor to Steve Scalise. And Nancy Mace is also now buddying around with Matt Gaetz and Steve Bannon. Here's Nancy Mace attacking Steve Scalise, who just received the majority vote to become a Speaker of the House, at least in the Republican caucus. But again, it needs the full vote of the House now. Play this clip.
You endorsed Jim Jordan, so I'm assuming you voted for Jim Jordan today. If the vote for Speaker were today, would you vote for Steve Scalise?
I would not. I plan on voting for Jim Jordan on the floor. I've been very vocal about this over the last couple of days. I personally cannot, in good conscience, vote for someone who attended a white supremacist conference and compared himself to David Duke. I would be doing an enormous disservice to the voters that I represent in South Carolina if I were to do that.
So at this point, it's just unclear how MAGA Republican Steve Scalise is going to get the votes that he needs, to become actually the Speaker of the House. Just because he got the majority of votes, he now needs the same thing that Kevin McCarthy went through with the 14 rounds. And now you have all the MAGA Republicans attacking him. And now they're doing more opposition research on him. You've got Jim Jordan and his proxies attacking Steve Scalise and trying to, bring him down and not allow him to actually secure the speakership, because they're doing that, it appears, in service of Donald Trump. And then you got people like MAGA Republican Ken Buck, who, by the way, I disagree with on essentially everything. But here you have Ken Buck basically saying that he can support Steve Scalise or Jim Jordan, because when he asked them who won the 2020 election, neither of them would answer that question. Here is Ken Buck describing what went down. Play this clip.
Something as simple as saying the 2020 election wasn't stolen. Why don't you think either one of those gentlemen can commit to that?
I think there is a large group of Trump followers in this country that would disagree with that, and there would be a political penalty for saying such a thing.
Got it.
And just so you see some additional clips of Steve Scalise, here is Steve Scalise saying, here, let me pull this clip of Steve Scalise. Here's Steve Scalise suggesting that the U.S. intelligence community concluding that Russia interfered with the 2016 election is false. Play this clip.
The president-elect in those 4 states, do you feel comfortable throwing out millions of votes of your fellow Americans?
Well, nobody wants any votes thrown out, Chris. And in fact, the 70+ million votes that are also at stake for President Trump. Well, no, if you look at the Texas lawsuit, what it was saying is there are some states that didn't follow the laws that were on their books. The Constitution is very clear that it's state legislatures that set the process for having electors.
With all
some
due respect,
Secretary
sir,
of State changed those rules.
The Supreme Court threw that out. They didn't even hear it.
The Supreme Court said they weren't going to take the case. They said Texas didn't have standing. They said Texas didn't have standing. They didn't say they were going to address the merits. Look, the Supreme Court, I think a lot of people know, didn't want to be anywhere near this court. They don't like getting in the middle of disputes between other branches of government. And that's just something they've done throughout history.
So bottom line, even though the electors on tomorrow are more than 270 of them are going to say that Joe Biden is the next president of the United States, you're not willing to recognize him as the president-elect, and you're not willing to stop contesting this election.
Well, hold on, Chris. First of all, Joe Biden has been going through a transition that even President Trump supported, while he's also following what the court allows. There are legal challenges allowed. Nobody said back during Bush v. Gore, prior to the Supreme Court finally resolving it, and ultimately there was electors met, there was a swearing in. Nobody disputed that, maybe some on the Democrat side, but you didn't see people asked prior to that to pass judgment before it was fully resolved. Let the legal process play out. But if you want to restore trust by millions of people who are still very frustrated and angry about what happened, that's why you've got to have this whole system play out. There will be a president sworn in on January 20th. But let's let this legal process play itself out.
All right. Let me switch to another subject. We learned this week that the Justice Department...
Here was back in December of 2020, where Scalise would not commit to support it, recognizing that Joe Biden was the president-elect. Play this clip.
A piece of legislation that I hope Speaker Pelosi would bring to the floor instead of the partisan approaches that she's been taking. And finally, when you look at what she really has done with this majority, that is, from day one, when she became Speaker, she made it very clear that the most radical elements of her base, who didn't want to work with this president, but they wanted to overturn the results of the 2016 election, and so they were committed to impeaching him, regardless of the facts. That's been going on from day one that Speaker Pelosi took that gavel. And today, unfortunately, she bowed down to the most radical elements of her base, instead of standing up to them and saying that she was going to work for the American people. By bringing articles of impeachment after years of investigations, with the Mueller investigation being the linchpin, what they thought was going to be the thing that delivered something to impeach the president on, and it didn't. There was no violation. The only collusion that happened where Russia tried to interfere with our election was when Barack Obama was president. That's when Russia tried to interfere with our election. Why Barack Obama and Joe Biden aren't being asked why they didn't stand up to Russia and stop them from interfering in our election is a really good question that's not being asked. But President Trump has stood up to Russia on so many accounts. President Trump stood up to Russia with our ally Ukraine and still is standing with Ukraine against Russia. When he saw
And here's Steve Scalise saying that climate change isn't real because we had hot summers 150 years ago. Play the clip.
Can you lasso John Kerry to a strong fence post and stop these crazy apocalyptical visions and policies of a 100% green country? Can you do it, Mr. Scalise?
Wow, Larry. Well, first of all, I could listen to your riffs all day long and enjoyed the last one. It's a treat as always. I will tell you, if you want to lower carbon emissions globally, just put John Kerry's private airplane, leave it on the tarmac, make him take his sailboat.
So that's your MAGA Republican Party for you, folks. Chaos, attacking each other, cannibalizing each other. I mean, it's beyond dysfunctional. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Hit subscribe. We're on our way to 2 million subscribers thanks to your support. Check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch and have a great day.
Hey Midas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram at MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.